All right, guys, so we finally came to something that I'm super excited about for the car, and something I kind of talked about before on a previous video, but my parts finally showed up, so we're going to go ahead and get to it. So what we're doing today, I've kind of already pulled the front end of the car apart, is we're going to be taking out the headlights, and we're going to be baking them, pulling them apart, and we're going to be painting all the chrome and the orange, and then also installing some RGBW boards, aftermarket ones from Diode Dynamics for these tri-bar markers, and that'll make it where we can select basically any light that I want and any color. So that's going to be super cool. Really excited to get going on it. As you can see, I've already got the bumper off. I'm not going to show you guys obviously how to do that because I do have that in another video. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go back and I'll have the video up here and you can go and watch that video. That's where I did the whole grill install and everything. So if you're interested in how to pull off the bumper, you can go back to do that. I'm not going to waste time on this video going through that again. But for pulling off these headlights, once you get the bumper off, it's super simple. You got a 10mm bolt here, 10mm bolt here, and then over here on the side, you've got a 13mm. All those are going to come off, and this whole headlight housing is just going to pop out. Then you'll pull the pigtail off the back, and the headlight is free. So now that the headlights are out of the car, next up we're making a pit stop into my kitchen, and I went ahead and wiped these down. I just took some isopropyl alcohol and an old microfiber that I didn't care about. Went ahead and wiped these off because there's quite a bit of crud that gets built up in the back here. I'm sure it's not super necessary, but I just like to have it nice and clean to work on. So those are all wiped off. You can see my other supplies I got here. I got some 2-part epoxy that's specifically for plastic. That's going to be for when I put the new DRL boards in there inside these tri-bar fish gill looking light things. And so that's going to hold that in there. Got some frog tape to kind of tape off the areas that I don't want to repaint. And then obviously that orange marker, all the chrome is getting painted. Got a nice can of gloss black Rust-Oleum paint. And then over here, obviously, is everything from Diode Dynamics. We got the RGBW controller. Inside here, we have the actual lights. And it looks like some other, okay, so the drivers for those that it'll plug into. Some other wiring, that's gonna be for splicing. They use these wire taps. I hate those things, so we're probably gonna do some soldering instead. And then some more pigtails. I'm sure that goes for connecting these. And then inside of here should be, these are the boards themselves. So yeah, all kinds of stuff. I threw in some stickers in there. That's cool. And then in this box here, finally, we've got the new sealant, which will be for when we go to reassemble the headlights. And then I got a little screwdriver there. It's going to be, you got little, I think there's at least a couple. You got one there, one there, and then one there and one there. So there's 4 total screws on each headlight, Phillips head. And then the flatheads are just going to be for as I bake them, just to kind of work in these seams here and separate the lens from the back of the housing. And you do have these tabs here, so you want to make sure as you're separating it that you pull up on those. Don't do it too much because obviously they can break. But this whole process, from what I understand, it's going to take quite a few times of heating these up to like 225. They say 225 to 250. I think I'm gonna go 225 just see how it works, and we'll just go from there. But you're gonna have to slowly work through. I guess this factory sealant is really like aggressive stuff, and it's pretty hard to get it to break loose. All right, so at this point in the video, about 2.5 hours have passed, and the oven was absolutely not working. I'm sure a lot of you guys, like, I'll freely admit, I have no experience in pulling apart headlights at all, but I do know that Ford, well, on the Mustang anyway, they used this whatever type of sealant it is that they used in there, but it is not your typical butyl type that will melt and get actually gooey. So this was with a heat gun. I ended up having to use a heat gun. That was the only way I was able to get this to come at all pliable. So I was able to get out in like chunks like this, ended up with a pile kind of like this. And between getting all that out of there and cleaning up the trench or this groove or whatever you want to call it around here, that was at least 2 hours, probably another half hour cleaning that up. Several times I definitely thought that I was going to end up breaking something, but somehow did not. So it is a very time-consuming process, guys. The oven just was not getting it. It was heating it evenly, but the amount of time I was having to work with it, and it was not getting it pliable, and I was worried about heating it up any hotter with heating everything up like that. So the heat gun is nice, in my opinion, just because it concentrates your certain areas. And I was able to just work a couple inches at a time and get this stuff out of there. So looking back, I don't know that I would have done this if I had known how hard it was going to be. And I wish I could tell you guys it's simple and anybody can do it, which anybody can. And for somebody that has more experience than me, you're probably going to have an even better time. But me, with my experience, there's something to be said for the fact that I'll be able to say I did these myself, and that part's going to be kind of cool. But otherwise, it's definitely a very stressful, time-consuming process. And this is only one headlight. I still got another headlight to go, so I'm definitely going to be here all day. But the good thing is, it is apart, so now we can get to the LED boards that are behind here. And then also, you can see my lens cover. That's what's going to be painted, and it's just going to come out with, it looks like we just got 4 more Phillips head screws. So we are getting somewhere. There isn't an in sight, but just know that if you're going to do this, it is going to be very involved and you're going to be there for a while. So we do have the 3 main pieces of the headlight apart. We will have to remove that, like I was saying, here a little bit later, but for now I'm going to focus on painting this just so it can be drying, and that way while I am putting in the new LED boards in the headlight housing, this can be drying, and then hopefully we'll be able to get it all put back together fairly quickly. So for now, I'm just going to start masking off kind of around here, just so we get the area painted that we actually want painted. Obviously these are not going to get painted, and I don't really want to paint the stuff that's already black either. We're just going to paint that chrome and orange. So we'll get all that masked off and get it painted, and we'll be right back. So went ahead and took it outside with the first coat of paint on there. Like I said, everything was masked off that I didn't want overspray on. Down here I didn't care because that's all hidden anyway, it's nothing visible. But got the first coat on, looks pretty good. We'll take it inside, let it dry, and then we'll slap another coat on it here in about 30 minutes or so. So while that housing cover is drying, we're going to go ahead and pop out these gills and get to those factory boards, LED boards that are behind them, and we'll swap in our brand new RGBW ones from Diode Dynamics. Like I said before, all it is just 4 little Phillips head screws. Super simple to take out. And then I believe this just pops right off. There's actually 3 more Phillips head screws here, and I kind of think they have to come out because the wiring is still attached there behind this. Alright, so all these lights just plug in, so you do have to remove this black panel, and then you can see here on this circuit board here, there's a little clip, and the wires on that are what goes to all the factory boards. So actually, I think I'm going to have to actually unscrew this board because there's a little tab here in the back that's going to prevent that from sliding all the way out otherwise. So go ahead and remove these 2 Phillips head screws. Be very careful not to slip the screwdriver out and damage the board. Now this board comes out. There is these 2 wires here. The green, yellow, and black wire, but I don't need to remove those, I don't think, so I'm not going to worry about that. And I'll just kind of set this back out of the way, and now we've got access to all of our factory LED boards. So in order to get each of these factory LED boards off of here, you can see there's these little sort of plastic rivets on either side of each board, and so basically you have to take a Dremel tool and grind that off flat so that way these can come off, and then that's where the two-part epoxy that I showed you guys earlier is going to come in play. So the aftermarket boards are going to set in the same spots, but then you're going to just put a dab of the two-part epoxy over the top there, and that'll hold those on there. That's not just something I'm making up to kind of get by. That is what Diode Dynamics does when they build headlights. So that's what we're going to do. It should work perfectly fine, and I'm going to go ahead and take that out to the shop. That's where my Dremel tool is, and I don't want to get any dust going on in here because I do have the headlight over there drying, and we don't really want to get any dust on that. So we'll go ahead and take that outside, grind those off, and we'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So that took me maybe 5 minutes to grind those. You can see I already popped that one off, but you basically just grind it flush, and you barely have to pull it all, and they just come right off. So really nothing to getting these things off. It was way simpler than I had anticipated that it would be, which is nice because the rest of this has not been simple so far. Oh, this last one is, there we go. Hard to do this with one hand, but so that's the factory boards. Now you can see you still got the little, just the nubs there. And so these aftermarket ones are going to sit on top of there, and then just some epoxy on top of that, and you're good to go. Next up, we're going to take the two-part epoxy, go ahead and squeeze some onto the, that's probably too much, but oh well. Squeeze some onto a paper plate or whatever you've got handy. Then go ahead and, this just came with it. It's basically like a little popsicle stick. Kind of mix that up. Then we'll go over here and we'll start with just one board at a time. And we'll start gluing these down. They don't fit perfectly on there because the holes are a little, I mean, they only go on one way, obviously. But just kind of get it centered around there. That way you can get epoxy around, all around the hole, and make it really bond with the board super well. And this takes 15 minutes to set up, so we're just going to kind of hold it here, and then we'll move on to the next one. Second coat of paint is on this housing cover, and it looks really good. It's kind of hard to see in the video, I'm sure, but the quality really isn't half bad for using spray paint. If you guys really wanted to go all out, I'm sure you could take these to local auto shop or something and have them paint them for you. I just wanted to do this all myself and just see if I could do it, which so far seems like it's not working out too bad. The epoxy is pretty much dry on these boards, I think. It's kind of a pain. I would definitely probably get some faster curing epoxy. I went with some 15-minute stuff that was specifically for plastic. There was some little bit faster curing stuff that I could have got, but it said that it was with some plastics, and I wanted to get something that was specifically for plastic. So it seems like it's doing a pretty good job bonding. I'm going to give it probably another 10-15 minutes just to be safe, and then we're going to go ahead and start putting this back together. All right, so the boards are back in, lights are all back installed, and something that nobody seems to care to tell you is where they ran the wire for the new boards. So there was this little breather patch here on the back. I ended up cutting that out, and I ran the cable out there. I'm going to go ahead and silicone that all up. Hopefully that will seal it up pretty good. Otherwise, we'll come back and do something different later. But the butyl that I got, that will be the new sealant, that is the same kind of breathing capabilities as what that had. So it should make the moisture go out and let nothing back in. So we'll see how it goes, but I figured I'd just let you guys know that because nobody seems to, on any online forums that I've seen, tell people how they ran that cable. All right, guys, so we finally got everything kind of in place. The silicone's dry on the back. I'm still really hoping that this does not end up leaking, but I'm not going to be shocked, honestly, if it does. It's kind of sad to say, but like I said, I'm not a headlight builder at all, but I don't know. There really isn't a whole lot of good places to run these wires. So worst case, I may end up having to go back in here and redo it, but it is what it is. We're going to try it out for now. Right now, I'm just going to see if we can actually get these that will actually power up. So I went ahead and plugged in the driver. I've got the controller plugged in, and then These are just all extras, so I'll plug in the other lights into here. But then for the plug, I've just got a ground cable here, and then you got a couple power cables. So what I'm going to do is I took my power probe here and I've got it plugged into a jump box, and basically I'm just going to probe the wire here to apply power to the circuit essentially, and then I'm just taking the alligator clip side and clipping it onto, I think it'll fit in here, onto the ground on there. This whole setup is controlled by an app actually, Diode Dynamics. We've got their own app there, so this is all ready to go. I've got it installed. This thing is this stupid jump box likes to beep a lot, so I apologize for that. Turn off at least the noise from the power probe, but let's see here. So we're just going to take and apply power with the power probe. So there's our basic white coloration, and then as you can see, you can go all the way around. Basically pick any color that I possibly want. Different shades of each color. I mean, it's pretty cool. And then of course you can just return it to white. So we know that works. We'll go ahead and pop the lens on. I got to put all of the, turn this off. I got to put all the new butyl sealant in there, obviously, but hopefully that'll all go well and it'll seal up nice and tight. Hopefully we don't get any leaks. I really don't want to have to come in and do this again, but I mean, it is what it is. It's just kind of a learning experience. My first time ever doing headlights, and from my understanding, this is about the most complicated one you could possibly do it on, just based off of how hard they are to seal back up. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, at least the lights work. We know they work. That's something I wanted to test before I did go to actually seal these back up. So we'll go ahead and start getting that sealant put in there, and I've got the lenses all painted over there. So we'll get those slapped on and making a little bit of progress anyway. All right, we got the full string of the new butyl sealant all laid in this groove here. I made sure to press it down as deep in there as I could. And then the next step is just going to be heating it up until it just turns into absolute goo with the heat gun. And then I'll be pressing the lens back onto the housing. So this is kind of probably the most important part as far as getting it right, because otherwise it's going to leak and we're going to have to redo it all. So hopefully this works. So the lens is on the light now. It looks good. I mean, you're not going to really be able to tell how good it looks until I do get it on the car, but that black really did a lot for the headlights. I mean, just getting rid of that chrome really cleaned up the look a lot and didn't make it look as obnoxious. Now I just got to keep my fingers crossed and hope that these things don't leak. So anyway, we know this one works. Now I just got to move on to the next one. Both headlights are finally done, so I am getting ready to slap them into the car. First off, before I do put them in, I will need to, of course, do my wiring. So to do that, we're just going to take our Bluetooth controller, and that has got the 2 power leads, and then also the ground. So we're going to, they give you a diagram. There's just 3 wires that we're going to tap into, and these will be all wired up. There are some extra ones you can do if you want to have the vertical bars do the sequential turn signal. I'm not really too worried about that right now. I can always go back in and tap in and cut up all my wires and do that later if I want to. But for now, I really don't even care to have that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the 3 wires to get power to them and call that good. And we'll go ahead and get started. So you're going to come over here to the headlight plug, and you're going to look for pin number 3, which is 1, 2, 3. It is the gray with the violet stripe. You can kind of see there on the back. That is the wire for the DRLs, so that's the one we're going to tap into for power there. Then for the second power wire that comes off the controller, we're going to tap into this green wire with the orange stripe. And then for the ground, you can either tap in to this black with, I think it's a gray stripe, or else you can really go to anything on the frame. I was thinking maybe this bolt back here where the horn is kind of bolted to, that could probably work. Either way, you just need something that'll provide a good ground for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, like they say, to a certain tapped into wire if you want to avoid cutting up more wires in your harness. So out of the box, they give you these spade connector ends. It's for those T-tap connectors that people love to use for whatever reason. Those things, in my opinion, are kind of junky. They don't really provide a very solid connection or very watertight. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off all of these ends, strip them down. I'll be cutting into the wiring there, obviously stripping it. For now, I think I may just go ahead and use some heat shrink butt connectors. That should do the job really well. If I end up having issues, I'll go back and solder it later, but I've used those a lot with all of the different projects I've done and never really had an issue. But with the T-taps, I have had issues, so I'm not going to be using those. All right, guys, so I have had both headlights installed for a couple days now. I've got the white LEDs lit up right now, but you can see that black really made this look better. It makes it look just, I mean, it doesn't stand out nearly as bad as the old orange reflectors were doing, and then with just the chrome. Not really my thing. So to me, it looks a lot better. I know I mentioned earlier in the video also that I was worried about there maybe being condensation issues with the headlights, just with the whole sealing up process and everything. I have had it through the car wash twice now in the past couple days because we had it rain in between and I got caught on the road, got a little dirty, and wanted to go ahead and wash it up again just so I could finish up getting footage for wrapping up this video. So went ahead and washed it, waxed it again, and it's looking pretty nice. So I'm super happy with how these turned out. Again, I didn't show you guys how to put on the bumper again because, like I mentioned, there is a previous video that you guys can go check out, and I go completely over how to remove and install your bumper as well as your grille and how to modify your grille. So if you guys are interested in that, go check that out. Didn't want to add it to this video because didn't want to make it run super long. And I know the main thing everybody's interested in is the different colors that these headlights can do. So I'm not going to keep you guys waiting any longer, and we'll go ahead and get to that. So as you guys can see, obviously we got the white headlights going on right now. So I just go over here. Diode Dynamics has their own app for these lights. So you just go in there. These are already on. Like I said, they're wired into my normal power. So whatever color I leave these on, they're going to come on when my regular driving lights come on. So from there, I can go ahead. I've got a bunch of presets in my phone for different colors. So obviously there's a light blue, you got a yellow, pink, a red, a green. And then you can take this color wheel and you can go around. You can basically select any color that you want, any shade of that color. You can go like a light red, a more orangish red. You can do like pretty much everything you want. And the other cool thing that I like is you can go in there and you can select different like flashing patterns. So you can even flash red and blue lights. Don't do this on the road because you will go to jail. So most of these lights, guys, you're not going to really be able to use on the road. It's very frowned upon. So you're probably gonna have to stick with kind of a white, yellow, orange, something of that type. They don't even want blue lights in the front. But this is super cool for taking pictures with, going to car shows, whatever. And to me, it just kind of, since I was in there already, I was gonna paint the lights regardless, and I figured I might as well do something else just to kind of give it that cool feature. To take pictures, take to car shows, just give it something extra added that not a lot of people have. So to me, that was a big factor for that. So yeah, guys, hopefully you guys learned something in this video. If you are trying to do your own set of these headlights, I'm going to tell you right now, it is a difficult project. By far, probably the most difficult and stressful project that I have done on a car. I have easily 20 hours into both of these headlights from the start of removing them to getting them back into the car. So it is by no means an easy project. And that's not to scare you guys off of doing it yourself. I definitely think you should if it's something that you want to do. Just know what you're getting into. And also if you're willing to risk destroying possibly a $1,000 each set of headlights. So if you're not super comfortable with it, I'd recommend getting a friend that maybe has done something like this before, or else maybe just go ahead and shell out the money for a pre-made set. I know Diode Dynamics does do their own, or they do make these sets that you can buy. They're not cheap though. And something I want to mention too, you can see in the video kind of that this is kind of hazy. That's just the camera. These are really super crisp looking. I mean, it looks almost like brightly painted plastic when you're looking at it in the daylight. It looks really cool. So that's about all I got for you guys in this video. Make sure to subscribe and keep watching for the channel because we got a lot more mods coming up. This summer is going to be wild. I can't wait to get this thing at the track and really get to testing and tuning it. We got a lot coming up in the time leading up to when the track actually opens. So I'm super excited for it. You guys make sure to keep watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.